The gunshot that killed Olivia Carson's husband echoed through the saloon on a bitter February night in 1878, and by morning she discovered she was carrying his child. She stood at the window of their small room above the general store in Williamsburg, Virginia, watching the undertaker's wagon disappear down the muddy street, one hand pressed against her still flat stomach. Thomas Carson had been a gambling man, and his debts had finally caught up with him. The man who pulled the trigger claimed self-defense, said Thomas reached for his gun first, and the sheriff had no choice but to let him walk free. Olivia was 22 years old, widowed, pregnant, and completely alone in a town that had already begun to whisper about her situation. The whispers grew louder as the weeks passed. Thomas had left her nothing but debts and a tarnished reputation. The room above the general store belonged to Mr. Henderson, who came knocking 3 days after the funeral demanding back rent. Olivia had worked as a seamstress before her marriage, and she returned to it now with desperate determination. Her fingers flew over fabric late into the night, mending torn work shirts and altering dresses for the few women in town who would still speak to her. Some of them paid her fairly. Others took advantage of her situation, offering half what the work was worth, and knowing she would take it anyway. By late April, her condition was becoming impossible to ignore. The spring rains had turned the streets into rivers of mud, and Olivia found herself constantly tired, constantly hungry, and constantly afraid. She let out her dresses as much as she could, wearing loose-fitting garments and aprons that disguised her changing shape. But Virginia springs were unpredictable, and when the weather turned cold again in early May, she wrapped herself in Thomas's heavy wool coat whenever she ventured outside. It smelled faintly of tobacco and whiskey, scents that now turned her stomach, but it was large enough to hide the small swell of her belly. She was wearing that coat on the morning she met Adam Anderson. The general store needed flour and sugar delivered from the warehouse at the edge of town, and Mr. Henderson had grudgingly agreed to pay her a few extra cents if she would fetch it herself. Olivia trudged through the mud, the heavy coat wrapped tight around her body, her boots squelching with each step. The warehouse was run by a man named Carl Jenkins, who had been one of Thomas's drinking companions. He looked at her with barely concealed contempt when she presented Mr. Henderson's order. "Mighty heavy load for a woman in your condition," he said, his eyes dropping to her midsection. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I can manage just fine." "Can you now?" Jenkins crossed his arms. "Seems to me a decent woman would have left town by now. Spare us all the embarrassment." She bit back the sharp retort that rose to her lips. She needed the supplies, needed the work, needed every cent she could earn before the baby came. "The flour and sugar, Mr. Jenkins, please." He made her wait 20 minutes before he finally loaded the supplies onto a small handcart. The bags were heavy, and Olivia struggled to push the cart through the muddy streets. Her back ached, her hands were numb from gripping the wooden handles, and the coat felt like it weighed 100 pounds. She was halfway back to the general store when one of the cart's wheels sank deep into a rut. She pushed harder, throwing her weight against the handles, but the wheel only settled deeper into the mud. "Easy there. You are going to hurt yourself." The voice came from behind her, low and calm. Olivia turned to find a man standing a few feet away, leading a large chestnut horse. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at the collar of his work shirt. His face was weathered from sun and wind, with strong features and eyes the color of storm clouds. He looked to be in his mid-20s, and there was something steady about him, something that made Olivia want to trust him even though she had learned not to trust anyone. "I can manage," she said, the words automatic. "I am sure you can." He tied his horse to a nearby post and walked over to the cart. But there is no shame in accepting help when it is offered. He gripped the cart handles beside her hands, and Olivia caught the scent of leather and clean sweat. With seemingly no effort at all, he lifted the wheel from the rut and pushed the cart forward onto firmer ground. Olivia followed, hurrying to keep up, and together they maneuvered the supplies the rest of the way to the general store. Mr. Henderson appeared in the doorway, his expression sour. "About time, Mrs. Carson. I was beginning to think you had run off with my goods." The stranger's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. He helped Olivia lift the bags of flour and sugar from the cart, carrying them inside with an ease that made her own struggle seem foolish. When the last bag was stacked in the storeroom, Mr. Henderson pressed 3 pennies into Olivia's palm and disappeared into the back without so much as a thank you. Olivia stood in the dim interior of the store, clutching the pennies, fighting the sudden burn of tears behind her eyes. 3 pennies for an hour of hard labor. It was not enough. It would never be enough. "Are you all right?" She had almost forgotten the stranger was still there. She turned to find him watching her with concern in those gray eyes. "I am fine. Thank you for your help." "My name is Adam Anderson," he said. "I just hired on at the Double Bar Ranch about 5 miles west of town. I am new to Williamsburg. Olivia Carson." She hesitated, then added, "Welcome to town, Mr. Anderson." "Adam, please." He studied her face for a moment. "May I ask you something, Mrs. Carson?" Her fingers tightened on the pennies. "You may ask. Why does a man like Henderson treat you so poorly? You did good work, hard work. You deserve better than 3 cents and rudeness." Olivia felt her throat constrict. No one had stood up for her in months. No one had suggested she deserved anything at all. "My husband died owing money to half the town. I am trying to pay his debts and survive, but people here have long memories." Adam's expression softened. "I am sorry for your loss. Thank you." She moved toward the door, suddenly desperate to be alone. "I should go. Thank you again for your help." She hurried out into the street before he could respond, the heavy coat billowing around her like a sail. She did not look back, but she could feel his eyes on her until she turned the corner and disappeared from view. Over the next few weeks, Olivia saw Adam Anderson several times around town. He was always polite, always respectful, tipping his hat when their paths crossed and asking if she needed anything. She always said no, even when the answer should have been yes. She could not afford to rely on anyone, could not risk the gossip that would follow if people saw her spending time with a single man. Her reputation was already in tatters. She would not make it worse, but Adam had a way of appearing when she needed help most. When she struggled to carry home a basket of mending from the boarding house, he materialized at her side and insisted on walking with her. When she dropped a spool of thread in the street and it rolled into the mud, he retrieved it and cleaned it off with his handkerchief. He never asked for anything in return, never made her feel weak or incapable. He simply helped, then went on his way. By late May, Olivia's belly had grown impossible to hide beneath regular clothing. The heavy coat became her constant companion, even as the Virginia weather warmed and the other women in town shed their winter layers. She sweltered beneath the thick wool, her face flushed and damp with perspiration, but she could not bring herself to take it off. The moment she did, everyone would know for certain what many already suspected. The baby would become real to them, and the judgment would intensify. She was wearing the coat on a particularly warm afternoon in early June when she ventured to the post office to mail a finished dress to a customer in Richmond. The sun beat down mercilessly, and by the time she reached the small building, she felt dizzy and sick. She handed the package to the postmaster, paid the fee, and turned to leave. The world tilted suddenly, and she grabbed the counter to steady herself. Mrs. Carson. The postmaster's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you unwell? I am fine, she managed. Just the heat. She made it outside and half a block down the street before her legs gave out entirely. She sank onto a bench outside the hardware store, gasping for breath, her vision swimming. The coat felt like a furnace, but she could not remove it here, not with people walking past, not with their eyes already turning toward her with curiosity and disdain. Olivia. Adam's voice cut through the haze. Suddenly he was kneeling in front of her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. You are going to faint if you do not get out of this heat. I am fine, she whispered, but even she did not believe it. No, you are not. He stood and offered his hand. Come with me, please. She should have refused, she should have sent him away. But the world was spinning and she could barely breathe. So she placed her hand in his and let him pull her to her feet. He led her down the street to a small restaurant she had never been able to afford, ushering her inside and guiding her to a table in the back corner where it was cooler and darker. He ordered water and sweet tea, pressing a glass into her hands. Drink, he said softly. Olivia drank, the cold liquid easing the tightness in her throat. Adam sat across from her, watching her with concern. When some color had returned to her face, he leaned back in his chair and said, You are going to make yourself sick wearing that coat in this weather. I am fine. You nearly fainted in the street. I just need to rest for a moment. She set down the glass, her hands trembling slightly. Thank you for the water, I should go. Olivia. The way he said her name made her stop. You do not have to hide. The words hung in the air between them. Olivia felt her heart hammering against her ribs, felt the heat rise to her face again, but this time it had nothing to do with the weather. I do not know what you mean. Yes, you do. Adam's voice was gentle, without judgment. You are wearing a heavy wool coat in the middle of June. You can barely breathe, and you are trying to hide something that should not require hiding. Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes before she could stop them. You do not understand. This town, these people, they already despise me for what my husband did. If they know about the baby, if they see, it will only get worse. I need to work. I need to earn money, and no one will hire me if they know. Then they are fools. Adam reached across the table, hesitated, then placed his hand over hers. There is no shame in carrying a child, Olivia. Your husband may be gone, but you are bringing a life into this world. That is something beautiful, not something to hide. She pulled her hand away, swiping at her tears with the back of her wrist. You are very kind, Adam, but you do not live in my world. You do not know what it is like to be alone, to be judged for things beyond your control. You are right. I do not know what that is like. He paused, his gray eyes searching her face. But I know what it is like to be alone. And I know that no one should have to go through hard times without someone standing beside them. Why do you care? The question came out more sharply than she intended. Why do you keep helping me? You barely know me. Adam was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. When I was 15, my mother died giving birth to my younger sister. My father could not cope with the grief, so he started drinking. Within a year, he drank himself to death. I raised my sister on my own, working whatever jobs I could find, moving from town to town. People judged us everywhere we went. A boy trying to raise a little girl with no family, no home. They assumed the worst. They treated us like we were trash. He met her eyes. My sister died of fever when she was 8. I was 20 years old and I had lost everyone I loved. I swore that if I ever had the chance to help someone who was struggling the way we struggled, I would do it. No questions asked. No judgment. Olivia felt her anger dissolve, replaced by a deep ache in her chest. I am so sorry, Adam. I am not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I am telling you because I want you to understand that I know what it is like to be desperate and alone. And I am telling you that you do not have to be alone anymore. Not if you do not want to be." She looked at him for a long moment. This man who had appeared in her life like an answer to a prayer she had not known how to speak. He was offering her something she had not had in months. Kindness without strings, help without expectation, friendship without judgment. "I am afraid," she whispered. "I know, but fear does not have to control you." He stood, leaving money on the table for the drinks. "Come on, let me walk you home." They walked slowly through the streets of Williamsburg, and for the first time in months, Olivia did not feel the weight of hostile stares. Adam walked beside her, steady and calm, and somehow his presence made the world feel a little less cruel. When they reached the general store, he tipped his hat to her. "If you need anything, anything at all, send word to the Double Bar Ranch. I will come." "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. Adam smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "Because I want to. Because you deserve someone on your side. And because I have a feeling you would do the same for someone else if you could." He left before she could respond, swinging onto his horse and riding out of town. Olivia stood in the street, watching him go, one hand resting on her belly where the baby stirred and kicked. That night, she took off the heavy coat for the first time in weeks and did not put it back on. The next morning, Olivia dressed in one of her altered dresses and walked to the boarding house to collect her weekly mending. Mrs. Patterson, the owner, answered the door, and her eyes immediately went to Olivia's midsection. Her expression hardened. "I do not think your services will be needed anymore, Mrs. Carson." Olivia felt the words like a physical blow. "Have I done something wrong? Is the quality of my work unsatisfactory?" "The quality is fine. But I run a respectable establishment, and I cannot have someone in your condition coming and going. It sets a bad example for the young ladies who board here." "I am a widow, Mrs. Patterson. My child is legitimate." "Nevertheless," Mrs. Patterson's face was cold, "I have made my decision. Good day." The door closed in Olivia's face. She stood on the porch for a moment, fighting the urge to pound on the door and demand the work she desperately needed. But it would do no good. Mrs. Patterson had made up her mind, and nothing Olivia said would change it. She walked back to her room, her mind racing. The boarding house had provided half her income. Without it, she would not be able to pay next month's rent. Mr. Henderson would evict her, and she would be on the street with nowhere to go and a baby on the way. For the first time since Thomas died, Olivia allowed herself to truly break down. She sank onto her narrow bed and sobbed, great wrenching cries that tore from her chest and left her gasping for breath. She cried for Thomas, for the baby, for the life she had thought she would have and the nightmare she was living instead. She cried until there were no tears left, until she was empty and exhausted and numb. When the storm had passed, she washed her face and sat at her small table, staring at the few coins she had managed to save. It was not enough. It would never be enough. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find a young boy, no more than 10, holding a folded piece of paper. "For you, madam, from Mr. Anderson at the Double Bar." He thrust the paper into her hand and scampered away before she could ask any questions. Olivia unfolded the note, her heart beating faster. The handwriting was neat and precise. "I heard what happened at the boarding house. If you need work, the Double Bar Ranch needs someone to cook for the hands. Room and board included, fair wages. The offer stands if you want it. Adam." Olivia read the note 3 times, hardly daring to believe it. A job. A real job with room and board. It would solve everything, at least for now. But could she accept? Could she leave Williamsburg and go to work on a ranch, alone and pregnant? What would people say? Then she remembered Adam's words. "You do not have to hide." She sat down and wrote a response, her hand steady despite her racing heart. I accept. When should I start? The boy returned within the hour, and Olivia sent him back with her note. By evening, Adam himself appeared at her door, his hat in his hands. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "I do not want you to feel pressured. But the ranch really does need a cook, and you really do need work, and I thought perhaps it might be a solution for both problems." "I am sure," Olivia said. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow, if you are able. I will bring a wagon to help you move your things." The next morning, Olivia packed her meager belongings into a single trunk and said goodbye to the room above the general store. Mr. Henderson barely acknowledged her departure, simply taking her key and muttering something about finally getting a decent tenant. Olivia climbed onto the wagon seat beside Adam, and they rode out of Williamsburg toward the Double Bar Ranch. The ranch was larger than Olivia had expected, sprawling across the rolling Virginia countryside. The main house was a sturdy two-story structure with a wide porch, and beyond it stood a bunkhouse, a barn, and several outbuildings. Adam helped her down from the wagon and led her to meet the ranch owner, a weathered man in his 50s named Samuel Barnes. "So you are the new cook," Barnes said, looking her up and down. His eyes lingered on her belly, but his expression remained neutral. "Adam says you are a hard worker." "I am, sir. I will do my very best. The hands eat 3 meals a day, breakfast at dawn, lunch at noon, supper at sunset. You will have help from Maria, the housekeeper, and use of the ranch kitchen. You will stay in the small cabin behind the main house. It is not much, but it is clean and private." "That sounds more than adequate. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Do not thank me yet. Wait until you have seen how much those boys can eat." Barnes almost smiled. "Adam will show you around. If you need anything, you let him or Maria know." The cabin was indeed small, just 2 rooms with a fireplace, a bed, a table, and a chair. But it was clean and well-maintained, with curtains on the windows and a rag rug on the floor. Olivia stood in the doorway, overwhelmed by the simple kindness of it all. "Will this be all right?" Adam asked. "It is perfect." She turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you, Adam. I do not know how to repay you. You do not owe me anything. Just cook good meals and take care of yourself and the baby. That is payment enough." He left her to settle in, and Olivia spent the afternoon unpacking her few belongings and making the cabin feel like home. By evening, Maria, a kind-faced Mexican woman in her 40s, came to show her the ranch kitchen and explain the routine. The 2 women worked together to prepare supper for the 12 ranch hands, and when the men filed in and sat down to plates of beef stew and fresh bread, Olivia felt a quiet satisfaction she had not experienced in months. Adam sat at the end of the table, eating steadily and occasionally glancing her way. When the meal was finished and the men had thanked her and returned to the bunkhouse, he lingered behind. "Good meal," he said simply. "Thank you. How are you feeling?" "Tired, but good." Olivia wiped down the table, her movements slow and careful. "I cannot believe this is real. Yesterday I had nothing, and today I have a job, a place to live, a chance to start over. You deserve all of it." Adam picked up his hat from the peg by the door. "Get some rest, Olivia. Tomorrow will be another long day." The weeks that followed established a rhythm that Olivia had not known since before Thomas died. She rose before dawn to start breakfast, worked through the morning preparing lunch, spent the afternoon on supper preparations, and fell into bed each night exhausted but content. The ranch hands were respectful and appreciative, and Mr. Barnes paid her fairly at the end of each week. Maria became a friend, teaching her how to make tortillas and enchiladas, sharing stories of her own life and listening with sympathy to Olivia's struggles. And Adam was there, always there, a steady presence that made Olivia feel safe in a way she had not felt in years. He did not hover or smother, but he checked on her regularly, made sure she had everything she needed, and talked with her in the evenings when the work was done. They sat on the porch of the main house, watching the sun set over the Virginia hills, and spoke about everything and nothing. Adam told her about his dreams of someday owning his own ranch, about the places he had traveled and the things he had seen. Olivia told him about her childhood, about learning to sew from her grandmother, about the hopes she had for her baby. "You want a boy or a girl?" Adam asked one evening in late June. "I do not know," Olivia admitted. "I suppose I should say it does not matter as long as the baby is healthy. But if I am honest, I think I would like a boy. A son who can grow up strong and good, who can make his own way in the world." "He will be strong and good if you are the one raising him." Olivia felt warmth spread through her chest. "You have a great deal of faith in me, Adam. I have faith in what I see. And I see a woman who has survived more than most people could bear, who keeps going even when everything seems impossible. That is the kind of strength your child will inherit." As July turned to August, Olivia began to feel the baby move more frequently, strong kicks and rolls that sometimes made her gasp. Adam noticed one afternoon when she pressed a hand to her side, her face twisted in discomfort. "Is something wrong?" he asked immediately. "No, no. The baby is just very active today." She smiled despite the discomfort. "I think he is practicing to be a dancer. May I?" Adam gestured toward her belly, then flushed. "I apologize. That was presumptuous. No, it is all right." Olivia took his hand and placed it on her stomach where the baby was kicking. Adam's eyes widened as he felt the movement beneath his palm. "That is incredible," he whispered. "There is a whole person in there. I know. Sometimes it does not feel real." Adam kept his hand there for a moment longer, and when he pulled away, there was something new in his eyes, something tender and wondering. Olivia felt her breath catch. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feeling, and then Maria called from the kitchen that the bread needed checking and the spell was broken. But something had shifted. Olivia found herself thinking about Adam at odd moments, remembering the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the sound of his laugh, the gentle strength of his hands. She told herself it was gratitude, nothing more. He had saved her when she had nowhere else to turn, and of course she would feel warmth toward him. But late at night, alone in her cabin, she admitted to herself that what she felt was deeper than gratitude. She was falling in love with Adam Anderson. The realization terrified her. She was pregnant with another man's child, widowed barely 6 months, living on the charity of a ranch that had taken her in out of kindness. She had no right to these feelings, no right to imagine a future that included Adam as anything more than a friend and employer. And yet the feelings grew stronger with each passing day, until she could barely look at him without her heart racing. Adam seemed to be wrestling with something as well. He became quieter, more thoughtful, watching Olivia with an intensity that made her skin flush. One evening in mid-August, they were sitting on the porch after supper when he suddenly said, "I need to tell you something." Olivia set down her mending, her heart hammering. "What is it?" "I have been thinking about this for weeks, trying to decide if I should say anything or keep it to myself. But I cannot keep it to myself anymore." He turned to face her fully. "Olivia, I care about you, more than I should probably, more than is wise, but I cannot help it. You are the strongest, kindest, most remarkable woman I have ever met, and I am falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes, felt joy and fear warring in her chest. "Adam, I am pregnant with another man's child. I am living in your employer's cabin, eating his food, taking his charity. You cannot possibly want to tie yourself to someone in my situation. I do not care about your situation. I care about you." Adam reached for her hand, his grip warm and firm. "I know this is complicated. I know it is not the right time, and there are 1,000 reasons why we should wait, or why I should never have said anything. But I could not keep it inside anymore. I love you, Olivia. And if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, then we can find a way through the complications together." "I do," she whispered. "I do feel the same way. I have been trying not to, trying to convince myself it was just gratitude or loneliness. But it is more than that. I love you too, Adam." He stood and pulled her gently to her feet, his hands cradling her face. "Then we will figure this out together. One step at a time. I do not have much to offer you right now except my heart and my promise to take care of you and your child. But someday I will give you more. I will give you a home of our own, a future we build together." "I do not need more than your heart," Olivia said. "That is everything." Adam leaned down and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Olivia melted into him, one hand pressed against his chest where she could feel his heart beating as fast as her own. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we keep doing what we have been doing, but we do it together. We work, we save, we prepare for the baby. And when the time is right, we get married and become a family. People will talk. Let them talk. I stopped caring what people thought a long time ago." Adam tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "All I care about is you and the life we are going to build." They sat together on the porch until the stars came out, talking about their future, making plans and dreaming dreams. For the first time since Thomas died, Olivia felt hope, real and solid and unshakable. The next few weeks were some of the happiest of Olivia's life. She and Adam were discreet around the ranch, not wanting to cause gossip or make Mr. Barnes uncomfortable. But in the evenings, they spent time together, walking through the fields, sitting by the creek, talking about everything under the sun. Adam treated her with a tenderness that made her feel cherished, and he spoke to her belly as if the baby could already hear him, telling stories and making promises about the future. "I am going to teach you to ride," he told the baby one evening, his hand resting on Olivia's stomach. "And to rope cattle, and to be honest and kind and strong, and I am going to love you like you are my own because you will be my own. From the moment you are born, you will be mine to protect and raise and love." Olivia wiped tears from her eyes. "You are going to be an amazing father." "I am going to try my best." In early September, Olivia woke in the middle of the night with sharp pains radiating through her lower back. She sat up, breathing slowly, trying to determine if this was the beginning of labor or simply another false alarm. The pains intensified, coming in waves that made her gasp. She managed to light a candle and pull on her dressing gown, then made her way slowly to the main house. Maria's room was on the ground floor, and Olivia knocked softly on the door. Maria appeared immediately, took one look at Olivia's face and said, "The baby is coming." "I think so. The pains are getting stronger." Maria helped her back to the cabin and sent one of the ranch hands to fetch the midwife from town. Adam appeared at the door, fully dressed despite the late hour, his face pale with worry. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked. "Just be here," Olivia said through gritted teeth as another contraction hit. "Please just be here." The midwife arrived an hour later, a capable woman named Mrs. Fletcher, who had delivered half the babies in the county. She examined Olivia and pronounced that the baby would arrive before morning. Maria stayed to help, and Adam paced outside the cabin, wearing a path in the dirt. The labor was long and difficult. Olivia had never experienced pain like this, had never imagined such intensity was possible. She cried and screamed and begged for it to be over, and Maria held her hand and murmured soothing words in Spanish while Mrs. Fletcher worked with calm efficiency. Somewhere in the haze of pain, Olivia heard herself calling for Adam, and suddenly he was there, gripping her hand, his face creased with worry. "I am here," he said. "I am right here. You are doing so well, Olivia, just a little longer." "I cannot," she sobbed. "I cannot do this." "Yes, you can. You are the strongest person I know. You can do this." And somehow, with Adam's hand in hers and his voice in her ear, she found the strength to keep going. Just as the first light of dawn was breaking through the windows, the baby finally came, slipping into the world with a loud, indignant cry. Mrs. Fletcher cleaned and wrapped the infant, then placed the bundle in Olivia's arms. "You have a son," she said with a smile. Olivia looked down at the tiny face, red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect. The baby had a shock of dark hair and eyes that seemed to look right at her, full of trust and innocence. She felt a wave of love so powerful it took her breath away. "He is beautiful," Adam whispered, leaning over to get a better look. "Absolutely beautiful. Would you like to hold him?" Olivia asked. Adam's eyes widened. "May I?" She placed the baby carefully in his arms and watched as Adam cradled her son with infinite gentleness. His expression was one of pure wonder, and when he looked up at Olivia, there were tears on his cheeks. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you for letting me be part of this." Mrs. Fletcher and Maria cleaned up and made sure Olivia was comfortable, then left her to rest. Adam sat beside the bed, still holding the baby, and Olivia reached out to take his hand. "What will you name him?" Adam asked. Olivia had been thinking about this for weeks. "I want to name him Owen. Owen Thomas Carson, for his father but also for himself. A new life, a fresh start." "Owen," Adam smiled. "It is perfect." He stayed with her through the morning, only leaving when Mr. Barnes came to check on them and insisted Adam get some sleep. Olivia dozed on and off, waking each time Owen fussed to feed him, and marvel at the fact that he was real, that he was hers, that she had brought him safely into the world. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings. Maria helped when she could, and Adam was there every moment he was not working, changing diapers and walking the cabin floor with Owen when he cried, singing soft lullabies in a surprisingly good voice. Olivia watched him with her son and felt her love for him deepen into something solid and unbreakable. This was what family felt like. This was what it meant to have a partner, someone who stood beside you through the hard times and the good. In late September, Adam came to the cabin one evening with a serious expression on his face. Olivia was nursing Owen, and she looked up with concern. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong, but I need to talk to you about something important." He sat down across from her, his hands clasped between his knees. "I have been saving my wages since I started working here, and I have been talking to Mr. Barnes about buying a piece of land on the edge of his property. He is willing to sell me 20 acres at a fair price." Olivia's heart began to race. "Adam, that is wonderful. I want to build a house on that land, a real house with enough room for a family, and I want you and Owen to live in it with me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "Olivia Carson, I know we have not known each other long. I know this is all happening fast. But I love you, and I love Owen like he is my own son. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. Will you be my wife?" He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band. It was not fancy or expensive, but it was beautiful in its simplicity. Olivia felt tears stream down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Adam slipped the ring onto her finger, then leaned forward to kiss her gently, careful not to disturb Owen. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling through their tears. "I am going to make you so happy," Adam promised. "You already have." They were married 2 weeks later in a small ceremony at the ranch, with Mr. Barnes and Maria as witnesses. Olivia wore a simple blue dress she had sewn herself, and Adam wore his best shirt and a new pair of trousers. Owen slept peacefully through the entire ceremony, wrapped in a blanket Maria had crocheted. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Adam kissed Olivia with a tenderness that made her knees weak. After the wedding, they moved into the cabin together, and Adam began working on the new house in every spare moment he had. He worked through the fall, laying the foundation and framing the walls, and by December, the house was starting to take shape. Olivia helped when she could, holding boards and handing him tools while Owen napped nearby in a basket. They worked side by side, building their future with their own hands. Christmas came, and the ranch celebrated with a big meal and gifts exchanged around a roaring fire. Adam gave Olivia a beautiful rocking chair he had made himself, perfect for nursing Owen and sitting on the porch of their new house. Olivia gave him a warm quilt she had pieced together from scraps of fabric, each patch carefully chosen and stitched. And together they gave Owen a set of wooden blocks Adam had carved, even though the baby was too young to appreciate them. "He will grow into them," Adam said, watching Owen gum one of the blocks with determination. By February of 1879, exactly 1 year after Thomas died, the house was finished. It was not large, but it was sturdy and well built, with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a sitting room, and a wide front porch. Adam carried Olivia over the threshold, making her laugh, and they spent their first night in their new home curled up together in front of the fireplace while Owen slept peacefully in his cradle. "We did it," Olivia whispered. "We actually did it. We are just getting started." Adam kissed the top of her head. "This is only the beginning." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Adam worked the land he had purchased, raising cattle and horses, building the foundation of what he hoped would someday be a thriving ranch. Olivia kept house and cared for Owen, and in her spare time, she returned to sewing, making clothes for the ranch hands and people in town who were willing to overlook her past in favor of her skill with a needle. They were not rich, but they were happy, and that was worth more than all the money in the world. Owen grew quickly, a bright and curious child who kept them both on their toes. He took his first steps on a warm May morning, stumbling from Olivia's arms into Adam's with a delighted laugh. Adam swept him up and spun him around, and Olivia felt her heart swell with joy at the sight of her husband and son together. As Owen's first birthday approached, Olivia began to suspect she might be pregnant again. She waited until she was certain before telling Adam, choosing a quiet evening when Owen was already asleep. Adam was sitting at the table, going over the accounts, when she came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "I have something to tell you," she said softly. He turned to look at her, his expression curious. "What is it?" "I am pregnant. We are going to have another baby." Adam's face lit up with pure joy. He stood and pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. That is the best news I have heard in my entire life." He pulled back to look at her, his hands cradling her face. "How are you feeling? Are you well?" "I am well. A little tired, but well." They stood in the kitchen of their little house, holding each other, talking about the future. This time there would be no shame, no hiding, no fear. This time, Olivia would go through pregnancy surrounded by love and support, with a husband who cherished her and a safe home to bring the baby into. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and in January of 1880, Olivia gave birth to a daughter. The labor was shorter this time, and when Mrs. Fletcher placed the baby in her arms, Olivia looked down at the tiny girl and felt the same overwhelming rush of love she had felt with Owen. "What should we name her?" Adam asked, sitting beside the bed with Owen perched on his lap. Olivia looked at her daughter's delicate features, the wisp of blonde hair so unlike Owen's dark locks. "I want to name her Alice, after my grandmother." "Alice Anderson," Adam smiled. "It is perfect." Owen was fascinated by his new sister, leaning over to pat her head with his chubby toddler hands. "Baby," he announced proudly. "That is right, Owen. This is your baby sister. You are going to be the best big brother." The years that followed were full and rich. Adam's ranch grew steadily, and by 1883 he employed 3 ranch hands and had a growing reputation for breeding quality horses. Olivia's sewing business expanded as well, and she took on apprentices, teaching young women the skills her grandmother had taught her. Owen and Alice grew into bright, lively children, running through the fields and helping with chores, filling the house with laughter and noise. In the spring of 1884, Olivia gave birth to twin boys, a complete surprise that left the entire family reeling with joy and exhaustion. They named the twins Samuel, after Mr. Barnes who had given them their start, and Benjamin, after Adam's father. The house suddenly felt much smaller with 5 children, and Adam began planning an addition, working on it in the evenings with Owen's enthusiastic but not always helpful assistance. Through it all, Adam and Olivia's love continued to deepen. They had their disagreements, their difficult moments, the inevitable strains that came with raising a family and running a business. But they faced everything together, with honesty and communication and a commitment to making their marriage work. They still sat on the porch in the evenings when the children were asleep, talking about their days and their dreams, holding hands and watching the stars. One evening in late 1885, as they sat together on that familiar porch, Olivia leaned her head on Adam's shoulder and said, "Do you ever think about how we met, about how different things could have been?" "I think about it all the time," Adam admitted. "I think about how close we came to never meeting at all. If I had taken a job at a different ranch, if I had not been in town that day, you needed help with the cart, if either of us had been too afraid to take a chance on each other." "I was so scared," Olivia said softly. "I was hiding under that coat, trying to make myself invisible, trying to survive one day at a time. I did not think I deserved happiness or love or any kind of future. And now I know better." She lifted her head to look at him. "You taught me that I did not have to hide. You taught me that I deserved kindness and respect and love. You gave me everything I thought I had lost." Adam kissed her gently. "You gave me just as much. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to build something lasting. Before I met you, I was just drifting from place to place, working and saving but never really living. You made me want to put down roots." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the Virginia night. Inside the house, they could hear the faint sounds of the children stirring, and Olivia smiled. "I should go check on them," she said. "I will come with you." They walked inside together, moving through the house they had built with their own hands. Owen was sprawled across his bed, already lanky at 7 years old, dreaming whatever dreams filled the mind of an energetic boy. Alice slept curled in a ball, clutching the rag doll Olivia had sewn for her. The twins were tangled together in their shared crib, impossible to tell apart even in sleep. Adam and Olivia stood in the doorway, watching their children sleep, and Olivia felt a contentment so deep it was almost painful. This was everything she had ever wanted, everything she had thought she would never have. A loving husband, healthy children, a home filled with warmth and laughter. She had gone from hiding under a heavy coat, desperate and alone, to standing here in the life she and Adam had built together. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Adam replied, pulling her close. "Always." As the years continued to pass, the Anderson Ranch became one of the most successful in the area. Adam's reputation for honest dealing and quality livestock spread, and buyers came from as far as Richmond to purchase his horses. Olivia's sewing business became equally respected, and she eventually opened a small shop in Williamsburg, employing 4 seamstresses and selling not just clothing but also quilts and linens and other handcrafted goods. The children grew and thrived. Owen developed a passion for horses that matched his father's, spending every free moment in the stables and showing a natural gift for training. Alice proved to have her mother's talent with a needle, creating intricate embroidery designs that amazed everyone who saw them. The twins were inseparable and mischievous, keeping their parents constantly on their toes with pranks and adventures. In 1890, when Olivia was 34 and Adam was 32, they welcomed their last child, a daughter they named Grace. She was a quiet, thoughtful baby who seemed to observe the chaos of her large family with wise, patient eyes. Owen was 12, Alice was 10, and the twins were 6, and they all doted on their baby sister with an affection that made Olivia's heart swell. As Grace grew, Olivia found herself reflecting more and more on the journey that had brought her to this place. She thought about Thomas sometimes, about the young woman she had been when she married him, full of hope and naive optimism. That woman seemed like a stranger now. Thomas's death had been tragic, but it had also set her on the path to finding Adam, to building this life. She did not wish Thomas ill, and she made sure Owen knew about his biological father, but she was grateful for the way things had turned out. One afternoon in the fall of 1895, Olivia was working in her shop when a familiar face appeared in the doorway. It was Mrs. Patterson, the boarding house owner who had fired her all those years ago. The woman had aged considerably, her face deeply lined and her hair completely gray. "Mrs. Anderson," she said stiffly, "I was hoping to commission a dress." Olivia set down the fabric she had been measuring and looked at her former employer with calm eyes. "Of course, Mrs. Patterson. What did you have in mind?" They discussed the details of the dress, and as they talked, Mrs. Patterson's formal demeanor began to crack. "I heard your business is very successful, the best in town, people say. I have been fortunate. I have good workers and loyal customers. You have done well for yourself." Mrs. Patterson looked down at her hands. "I owe you an apology, Mrs. Anderson. The way I treated you when you were with child when you needed work most, it was not Christian. I have regretted it for years." Olivia felt a flicker of the old anger, the old hurt, but it was distant now, muted by time and happiness. "I appreciate your apology, Mrs. Patterson. Those were difficult times. You have every right to refuse to work for me. I would understand." Olivia considered this. She could refuse, could turn Mrs. Patterson away and feel justified in doing so. But what would that accomplish? She had built a life full of love and success. She did not need revenge or vindication. She needed nothing from this woman at all. "I will make your dress," Olivia said quietly. "And I will do good work because that is what I do, but I want you to know that your apology means something. It takes courage to admit when we have done wrong." Mrs. Patterson's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. You are a better woman than I deserve." After Mrs. Patterson left, Olivia sat for a moment, processing the encounter. One of her seamstresses, a young woman named Emily, came over with a questioning look. "Are you all right, Mrs. Anderson?" "I am fine. Just thinking about how much has changed. You were very gracious with her. I know she treated you badly." Olivia smiled. "Holding on to anger would only hurt me. I learned a long time ago that the best revenge is living well and being happy, and I am very happy." That evening, she told Adam about the encounter. They were sitting on the porch of their expanded house, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Grace was asleep in Olivia's arms, and the older children were doing their chores. "I am proud of you," Adam said when she finished the story. "It would have been easy to turn her away. It would have been. But I kept thinking about who I was when I met you. I was desperate and alone, and you showed me kindness without judgment. If I had turned Mrs. Patterson away, I would have been doing exactly what she did to me all those years ago." Adam reached over and squeezed her hand. "You are an extraordinary woman, Olivia Anderson. I am just a woman who was given a second chance and decided to make the most of it." In the spring of 1897, Owen announced that he wanted to start his own horse breeding operation. At 19, he was skilled and knowledgeable, and Adam had been preparing for this moment. Together, they purchased additional land adjacent to the ranch, and Owen began building his own homestead with the help of his father and brothers. It was bittersweet for Olivia to watch her firstborn son strike out on his own, but she was proud of the man he had become. Alice, at 17, had taken over much of the day-to-day operations of the sewing shop, proving to have a head for business as well as a talent for design. She had suitors, young men from good families who came calling on Sunday afternoons, but she was in no hurry to marry. "I want to build my own success first," she told her mother. "Like you did." The twins were 13 and full of energy, helping their father on the ranch and attending school in town. And Grace, at 7, was the family's little philosopher, always asking questions and observing the world with thoughtful eyes. As Olivia approached 40, she found herself taking stock of her life. She had 6 healthy children, a husband who loved her deeply, a successful business, and a place in the community that she had earned through hard work and integrity. The scared young widow who had hidden under a heavy coat seemed like someone from a different lifetime. One Sunday in June, the entire family gathered for dinner at the main house. Owen brought a young woman he was courting, a rancher's daughter named Sarah. Alice brought her latest dress designs to show off. The twins argued good-naturedly about who was faster at roping cattle. Grace helped set the table, carefully arranging the silverware. And Adam and Olivia stood in the kitchen, watching their children and grandchildren-to-be, feeling the weight of their blessings. "Can you believe this is our life?" Olivia asked, leaning against Adam's shoulder. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream," he admitted. "The best dream I ever had." They sat down to dinner as a family, the table overflowing with food and laughter and conversation. At one point, Grace asked her father to tell the story of how he and Olivia met, and Adam launched into the familiar tale. He told about seeing Olivia struggling with the cart in the mud, about helping her to the restaurant when she nearly fainted, about the heavy coat she wore even in the summer heat. "And then I told her she did not have to hide," Adam said, glancing at Olivia with a soft smile. "Because there was nothing shameful about her situation. She just needed someone to remind her of that." Owen looked at his mother with new understanding. He knew the basics of his parentage, knew that Thomas Carson was his biological father, but hearing the story now as an adult gave him a different perspective. "You were very brave, Mother," he said quietly. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "I was very scared. But your father gave me the courage to stop hiding and start living again." "We gave each other courage," Adam corrected gently. "That is what love does. It makes us braver than we thought we could be." After dinner, as the sun set and the children dispersed to their various activities, Adam and Olivia walked out to the edge of their property. They stood looking out over the land they had cultivated, the home they had built, the life they had created together. "You have any regrets?" Adam asked. Olivia thought about the question carefully. I regret that Owen's father died the way he did. I regret the pain and fear of those early months, but I do not regret the path that brought me to you. Every hardship, every struggle, it all led me here. And here is exactly where I want to be. Adam pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on top of her head. I used to wonder why God took my mother and sister from me, why I had to lose everyone I loved and spend so many years alone. But then I met you, and it all made sense. I had to go through those years so I would be in Williamsburg on that specific day, so I could help you, so we could find each other. You believe in fate? Olivia asked. I believe we were meant to find each other. Whether you call that fate or providence or luck, it does not matter. What matters is that we did find each other, and we chose to build this life together. They stood in the gathering twilight, holding each other, two people who had found love in the most unexpected circumstances and turned it into something beautiful and lasting. As the years continued to roll by, the Anderson family continued to grow and prosper. Owen married Sarah in 1899, and they gave Olivia and Adam their first grandchild, a boy named Thomas, in 1900. Olivia held her grandson and felt a sense of completion, knowing that her first husband's name would continue through the generations. Alice finally married in 1902 to a kind young lawyer named James Whitfield. She continued to run the sewing shop even after her marriage, and her husband supported her ambitions wholeheartedly. The twins both found work on the ranch, content to remain close to home and family. And Grace, brilliant and curious, became a teacher, educating the children of Williamsburg and the surrounding farms. In 1905, Adam and Olivia celebrated their 26th wedding anniversary. Adam was now 53, his dark hair shot through with silver, his face deeply lined from years of working in the sun. Olivia was 49, her own hair graying at the temples, her hands showing the years of hard work. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the people they had fallen in love with all those years ago. They hosted a large celebration at the ranch, with all 6 children, their spouses, and their grandchildren in attendance. Friends from town came, including Mr. Barnes, now retired and living with his daughter, and Maria, who had become like family. Even Mrs. Fletcher, the midwife, attended, delighting in seeing all the babies she had delivered now grown with families of their own. As the party wound down and the guests departed, Adam and Olivia found themselves alone on the porch once again. It had become their sanctuary over the years, the place where they had their most important conversations and their quietest moments. 26 years, Olivia mused. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that you told me I did not have to hide, and sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. It was a lifetime ago. We have lived an entire life together since then, and what a life it has been. Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder, the gesture as natural now as breathing. I never imagined I could be this happy, Adam. Even in my wildest dreams, I never imagined this. Tell me your dreams now, Adam said softly. What do you dream about for our future? Olivia thought for a moment. I dream about growing old with you, about watching our children and grandchildren thrive, about sitting on this porch when we are both ancient and gray, still holding hands, still telling stories. I dream about a long, peaceful life surrounded by the people we love. That sounds perfect to me. Adam kissed the top of her head. I promise you, Olivia, as long as I have breath in my body, I will make sure those dreams come true. In 1910, Adam and Olivia celebrated their 31st anniversary quietly, just the two of them. The children had offered to host a party, but they declined, preferring the intimacy of a simple dinner at home. They were both in their 50s now, slowing down but still active and engaged in their businesses and their family. After dinner, they sat on the porch and talked about the early days, remembering the struggles and the triumphs, the moments of fear and the moments of joy. They talked about Owen's birth, about the first time they said they loved each other, about building their house and starting their family. "I have been thinking about something," Olivia said as the stars began to appear overhead. "I want to write down our story. For the children, for the grandchildren, for everyone who comes after us. I want them to know where we came from and how we built this life." "That is a wonderful idea," Adam agreed. "What will you call it?" Olivia smiled. "I will call it You Do Not Have to Hide, because that is where everything began, with you teaching me that I did not have to hide who I was or what I was going through. With you showing me that I deserved love and respect and happiness." Over the next year, Olivia wrote their story in a leather-bound journal. She wrote about Thomas's death, about her pregnancy and her fear, about the heavy coat she wore in the summer heat. She wrote about Adam appearing in her life like an answer to prayer, about his kindness and his steadfast love. She wrote about Owen's birth, about their wedding, about building their house and their ranch and their family. She wrote about the struggles and the joys, the sorrows and the triumphs. When she finished, she read the entire story aloud to Adam over several evenings. He listened with tears in his eyes, occasionally interrupting to add his own memories or correct a small detail. When she reached the end, he pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "You captured it perfectly," he whispered. "Every moment, every feeling. This is our legacy, Olivia. This is what we leave behind." They gave the journal to their children at Christmas that year, and it was passed around the family, read and reread, treasured and protected. The children and grandchildren loved hearing about their parents' early struggles, about the courage it took to build a life from nothing, about the power of love to overcome every obstacle. As they entered their 60s, Adam and Olivia began to slow down more noticeably. Adam handed over most of the ranch operations to the twins, who had proven themselves capable managers. Olivia gave the sewing shop to Alice, who ran it with the same dedication and skill her mother had shown. They did not retire completely, but they stepped back, allowing the younger generation to take the lead. They spent more time with their grandchildren, telling stories and sharing wisdom, teaching skills and passing on traditions. Olivia taught the granddaughters to sew and embroider. Adam taught the grandsons to ride and rope. Together, they taught all of them about hard work, integrity, kindness, and love. In the spring of 1918, as the world was embroiled in war and upheaval, Adam and Olivia celebrated their 39th wedding anniversary. They were 66 and 62, respectively, their bodies showing the wear of long, productive lives. But their love was as strong as ever, perhaps even stronger, deepened by decades of partnership and commitment. They sat on their porch, the same porch where they had spent so many evenings over the years, and looked out over the land that had been the foundation of their life together. 39 years, Adam said wonderingly. Where did the time go? Into our children, into our grandchildren, into this ranch and this community, into every moment we spent together. Olivia took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. I would not change a single moment of it, Adam, not one. Neither would I. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. You are the great love of my life, Olivia Anderson, the greatest gift I ever received. And you are mine. You saved me, Adam, in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other, he corrected, just as he had so many years before. That is what love does. They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold and pink. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of family, grandchildren visiting for Sunday dinner, voices raised in laughter and conversation. This was the life they had built, the legacy they would leave behind. Adam and Olivia both lived into their 70s, remaining active and engaged until the very end. Adam passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1924 at the age of 72, with Olivia holding his hand. She mourned him deeply, but she did not break. She had his love to sustain her, the memories of nearly 45 years together, the knowledge that they had built something lasting and beautiful. Olivia lived another 6 years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She spent her final years rocking on the porch of the house Adam had built, telling stories to anyone who would listen. She told them about the heavy coat, about the cowboy who noticed and said she did not have to hide, about the love that had transformed her life. When Olivia passed away in 1930 at the age of 74, the entire community mourned. Her funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives she had touched, whose children she had clothed, whose hearts she had opened with her kindness and grace. She was buried beside Adam on a hill overlooking their ranch, and the headstone read, "Olivia Anderson, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, she never hid again." The ranch continued to operate for generations, passed down through Owen's children and their children after them. The sewing shop remained in business until the 1960s, a testament to the foundation Olivia had laid. The journal she had written, containing the story of her life with Adam, became a family treasure, passed down through the generations. Read at weddings and anniversaries, a reminder of where the family had come from and the love that had made it all possible. Years later, on a summer evening not unlike the ones Adam and Olivia had shared, one of their great-great-grandchildren sat on the porch of the original house, which had been carefully preserved as a family landmark. She was reading the journal, tracing her fingers over Olivia's careful handwriting, and as she reached the part where Adam first told Olivia she did not have to hide, she smiled. The words resonated across the decades, a message of hope and courage and love that was just as relevant now as it had been all those years ago. We do not have to hide who we are, what we are going through, the struggles we face. We can step into the light, accept help when it is offered, and build a life full of love and purpose and joy. That was the legacy of Adam and Olivia Anderson. Not the ranch, not the business, not the material things they had accumulated. Their true legacy was the love they had shared, the courage they had shown, and the family they had built together. It was a legacy that would endure long after the last physical remnants of their lives had faded away, carried forward in the hearts and stories of everyone who came after them. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, Adam and Olivia were together still, sitting on a porch, holding hands, watching the sunset, and knowing that their love had created something eternal.